Hi, welcome back. So this is the fourth video on SQLite. In this video, we're going to talk about the keyword where. So the keyword where is essentially giving us a filter so that instead of fetching all rows of a certain type, we can fetch them based on a condition. And if you think about how you interact with databases when you're an end user, maybe you're on some website, you're searching for something, then you typically have a filter either specifying by precisely what you're searching for, or maybe you're adding in some other filters based on date, based on location, or whatever. So let's see how this keyword works by heading into the code and showing some examples. So here you can see the code we'll be starting with. As usual, this is more or less the same code that we've been building on, just that I've removed some comments and filtered it down to more or less the basics. So we establish a connection and a cursor, then we drop the table if it already exists, create the table, insert our classic 80s songs into the table, and then of course we can execute, for instance, select commands here by fetching full songs. So now let me just collapse this. We're going to use the where keyword to select only certain songs. So how about we start by selecting late 80s songs. So by this, let's just say that we want songs after 1985. So this is what we'll call the variable name, and then you can probably see what we're trying to do, fetching all the songs in our database that have a release year after 1985. So as usual, we're just executing a command. So this is nothing new. And then we have a select keyword here. Let's just select the name. We're selecting it from songs, and then we can use the keyword where. And now we can specify conditions. So let's say that I want to fetch where year is greater or equal to 1985. And this is more or less it. So now let's also use the fetch all method we learned about to get all of them. And now we can simply print them out. So let's just loop over them and do that. So for song in songs, then we print song. Nothing special here. So whoops, I meant of course songs after 1985. So let me save this and run it again. And here you can see that we get 3 songs, namely I Want to Dance with Somebody, Take on Me, and Never Gonna Give You Up. And all of those songs have a release year higher than 1985, as you can verify up here. I also just want you to notice that I can specify conditions on year, even though I don't fetch this. So I could have also, of course, fetched the year variable. And here I can see more clearly, this is 1987, this is 1985, so that barely passes, and that's 1987, right? But I don't need year to place a condition on it. And that's sometimes nice because you can place a condition without extracting that field. So in this case, I might not really care about the year as long as it is over 1985. So instead of year, you can place loads of different conditions. Just to mess around a bit, I can say the duration should be over 200 seconds, like this. Run it again. Just misspelled duration. Let me just copy it. And then you get, I guess, all of them. But if I take it higher than 250 and save it, I'll only get 2 of the songs. So this is one type of condition, greater or equal. You can, of course, here have just greater than, or you can have less than, or less than equal. Or if you have a string, you can use equality to check. So I won't show all of these, that would be a bit tedious, but let me also show how to add more than one condition. Because sometimes you just want one of them, but sometimes you want to have 2 conditions that are both satisfied, or 2 conditions where at least one of them are satisfied. This should be familiar to you from basic Python programming, where you have the AND and OR keyword, and those work perfectly fine in SQL as well, so let's check that out. So let's now select late 80s songs or 4-minute songs. So if you're trying still to make intuitive variable names like this, I guess now this doesn't really make sense since I'm asking for duration, but after a while it becomes a bit difficult to make sensible variable names from these selections. So let's actually just call this a selection. So let's select name from songs where the year is greater or equal to 1985, and then I'm using the keyword and. Duration is greater than, so I guess 4 minutes is 240 seconds. So let me just immediately print the selection like this, run it, and here I get the SQLite cursor object, and that's just because I haven't fetched all the rows that match this selection. And here you can see that the only song that satisfies both of these is this song. So again, let me just remove the previous print statements so that this doesn't become very confusing. Here is a bit clearer. So now we have only one song satisfying both of them. So let me just copy this to make a minor modification. So apologies, here it was and, of course. So here I'm specifying something that satisfies both of these conditions. But here I want to only consider one of them. And then, of course, I just change out and with the or keyword. And now, if I print this out, and let me just, again, remove previous print statements, then I get, I want to dance with somebody, of course, because this satisfies both of them, but also Dancing in the Dark, Take on Me, Africa, or Never Gonna Give You Up. Before making a final example, I want to also point out something. That is that you can see that these kind of statements are growing, and having them on one line is for now kind of okay, but from a readability perspective, this becomes longer and longer and longer, and then I have to scroll horizontally to be able to write this. So what people very often do is to add 3 quotation marks here. This gives me a string in Python that I can break, and then they formatted it a bit more easily. So what some people do is to break down this so that we have select, from, and where under each other, and then write it something like this. And actually there is loads of different variations of how people prefer to write these things. Some people prefer this. Some people prefer to also break it at an or statement, but then have this one indented. Some people prefer to actually add some spaces like this so that these become aligned. Then you can actually also make some spaces here. You can trick around. Some people like this kind of style. This is called, I think, waterfall styling. Ultimately, honestly, from my perspective, this doesn't really matter that much. I think formatting it like this is a lot of work for not gaining really that much. So from my perspective, I typically just have them at the inline, something like this, or maybe like this if it's an or statement, and that's fine. For me, this is perfectly readable, and it's a lot better when the SQL statement grows. Because now you have like 4 lines when you break it out, but if you would have something that would be broken out into 12 lines or 20 lines, then having it all the way horizontal in a single line like this, it's completely horrible to write. I think here this is perfectly fine. Okay, so let's make a final selection. And this time I want to select albums starting with a W. So again, let me just call this a selection. Make a cursor.execute. Usually I would copy a bit more than what I'm doing now. It's just that for your practice, it might be good to write this out in the beginning. Fetch all here, then I can start to write my expression. So let me select the name and the artist here from the songs, and then I can ask where the album, but then I want it to be starting with W, so I can't just say where the album is W like this. This doesn't really work, but what you have in SQL is the keyword like. And this is kind of like a very mild regular expression thing where you can say that, yeah, I wanted to start with W, and then you can use the percentage sign here. And let's say that the rest of the characters are arbitrary. And let me just print the selection for us. Now you get albums starting with W. I think it also makes sense here to just give us out the album, so we can see it more clearly. So here we have the Whitney album from Whitney Houston, and you also have Whenever You Need Somebody by Rick Astley. So these are some different ways of using the where keyword. There are many more ways of using this, but I think this gives you kind of a flavor of what you can do. So in the next video, we're going to talk about sorting and how we can sort the output from our selections. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.